Hello, we're doing Saxon math, lesson 95, reducing rates before multiplying. So we can cancel numbers and fractions before multiplying. That's something we've actually done since lesson 70, where we've done such things as, 3 over 4 times 2 over 5 times 5 over 6. In this case, we were able to, if you guys remember back to lesson 70, we were able to reduce things like this. This 5 here was in the numerator and this one in the denominator. We were able to cancel those out. I can see that this 2 divided by 2 would be 1 and 4 divided by 2 would be 2. I can see that 3 divided by 3 would be 1 and 6 divided by 3 would be 2. All we'd be left with are these things here. We've got 1 times 1 times 1 here, and 2 times 1 times 2 in the denominator. So you have the numerator, which is 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1, and the denominator, which is 2 times 1 times 2, which makes 4. So all of these, 3/4 times 2/5 times 5/6 is 1/4. You could have gotten a bigger number. I mean, that if you wanted to, you just go ahead and do the whole thing. It would have been 30 over, what do we have here? 30 times 120. So it would have been 30 over 120. Well, that would have had to been reduced to 1/4. So you see what you've done here, instead of having to divide both of these by 30 and then realizing that, hey, in the end, you're still going to get 1/4, you can do all that canceling before you multiply. We cancel numbers in fractions before you multiply. You can also cancel units. That's the thing that you're going to do today for most of the problems. You can also cancel units in measures before you multiply. So like if you were to multiply 4 miles per hour by 2 hours, that would be 4 miles per hour. The per is this line here. This is 4 miles per hour times 2 hours. Well, if you look at it, you see that this hour in the numerator cancels this hour in the denominator. Just like this 5 up here canceled this 5 down here. 5 in the numerator, 5 in the denominator. They're the same. They cancel each other out. They become 1. Same with this. This hour here cancels that hour out. So all you're left with is 1 here and 1 here. And 4 miles times 2 times 1 equals 8. And down in the denominator, you have 1 times 1 times 1, which would be 1. But you don't need to actually write that piece. You just need the 8, and all you have left is the miles. So you just need to write the 4 miles per hour. Remember this per hour, this means division is a ratio. So it's like 4 miles over the 1 hour. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. So again, here's the same thing. I had it written here as well. Let's just look at it quickly again. So remember, this was from lesson 70. So like here, we cancel that one and cancel that one, it becomes 1 and 1. If you wanted to do this one and then this one, you could do that, because if I did 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. Look what happens. Now I've got this 3 divided by this 3, so I have to keep going if I can cancel. So now all I'm left with is 1 times 1 times 1 in the numerator and 4 times 1 times 1 in the denominator. That would be 4. So here's the reduced fraction, it would be 1/4. All right, if we're multiplying 55 miles per hour by 6 hours, in this case, you see this per right here. So that's 55 miles. And then per is the division sign, hour. so it's just 1 hour. I'm going to put that, I'm going to put 1 hour. And then it says multiply it by, so that's multiplication, 6 hours. Okay, and that's like 6 hours, and we're going to write it as a ratio. So it's 6 hours over 1. That's 6 hours divided by 1 is the same as 6 hours. But I just wanted to write it as a ratio, because that's one of the things that you need to do in this is rates are ratios of two measures. So you're going to multiply and divide rates involving multiplying and dividing units. So in order to do that, you just need to write it as a ratio. So in this case, we now have 55 miles times 6 hours. But I see that I need to cancel. So similar to this, I'm going to do some canceling. So this cancels this out. Even though this is plural, I had hours, it still means the same. It's the same kind of value, same unit. Even though this is only one of them and this is multiple, they are the same units. So hour and hours cancels each other out, and those become one by themselves. And now I'm left with 55 miles times 6 times 1 in the numerator. Let me just rewrite that for you. It's 55 miles times 6 times 1. That's all in the numerator. The denominator, all I have is this 1 times this 1 times that 1. Okay, so all that remains to be done then is actually multiplying that 55 times 6. So I get 30, carry the 3, that's 30, and then add the 3, that's 330. And now what's the label going to be? Well, there's no hours down here, there's nothing down here. These basically cancel out. It's just 55 times 6, and then all I'm left with is that miles. And then you go back and check what the question was asking. Multiply 55 miles per hour by 6 hours, that's 330 miles. That means if you're driving 55 miles per hour down the highway and you drive for 6 hours, 6 hours means you're going to go 330 miles. That's going to be how far you're going to go. Let's try another one here. If you multiply 5 feet by 12 inches per foot, so I need to start by writing 5 feet, and I'm going to multiply that by 12 inches per, see this is the per, foot. So I need 1 foot here. Okay, and then I'm going to write this as a ratio, it's over 1. And check this out. This feet is the same as this foot. Even though I wrote it with an abbreviation and it's singular, this plural version of feet is the same unit value as this foot. So that cancels that out. Those are gone. Let me just write that in red so that you can see that more clearly. That cancels this one out. Now all I'm left with is this 5 times what would be 1 here technically, and that would be 1 here. So I'm left with 5 times 1, that's a multiplication in between those, times 12 inches. So in the numerator, I have 5 times 1 times 12 inches. And in the denominator, I just have this 1 times this 1 that we had before times that 1. Okay. I can see that this is just going to all equal 1 anyway. So that means it's just going to be 5 times 1 times 12. So that means anything times 1, you know, I can just ignore that. But I just need to take 5 times 12. Some of you guys might already know that answer, 60 inches. If you don't, then you just have to multiply it out, I guess. You know, 12 times 5, you know, that's 10. Carry that, 60. Okay, and then so if you were to go 5 feet by 12 inches per foot, you would have 60 inches is what the final answer will be. So 5 feet means that it's 60 inches. So if you're multiplying this piece right here, 5 feet by 12 inches per foot. So that's just writing it like that. This 5 feet looks like that. And you come to your final answer of 60 inches. All right, let's try some of these practice problems. So keep in mind the abbreviation for kWh stands for kilowatt hours, a rate used to measure energy. So if you're curious about letter C here, it means kilowatt hours. So if you get into the electrical industry or any kind of industry that uses electricity, that's going to be pretty important for you guys. Let's look at this first one though. Letter A, it says $3 per hour times 8 hours. That's what that means. It's $3. This means per right here. $3 per hour for 8 hours. So that's like working an 8-hour day. You make $3 an hour. So if $3 per hour, how much would you make after 8 hours of work? Well, let's just rewrite this. Well, let me cancel this out. Use my red color for that. So hours cancels out. And then all I'm left with in the numerator is $3 times 8 with nothing here and 1 times 1 down here. So in the end, my final answer should just be 3 times 8, which is 24. And then the label is dollars. So I'm just going to write dollars. Okay, that's letter A. What about letter B? In letter B, it says 6 baskets per 10 shots times 100 shots. So if you're going 6 for 10 every time you shoot and you do it 100 shots, it's asking us, well, you can see pretty clearly the final label is going to be baskets because this shot cancels out this shot. And all the label is going to be left over is that last word. So I already know what the label is. But see if you can answer it before I do. See if you get it right. And then just check. I'm going to label it baskets. And I see that in this case it'd be, I noticed something else here real quick. I see that this 10 cancels out this right here. So now I have 100 divided by 10 is 10. And 10 divided by 10 is 1. So all I'm left with is 6 times 10 up here, which equals 60. And the label should be baskets. Okay, let's do letter C. If you have 10 cents per kilowatt hour, remember kWh stands for kilowatt hour. If you have 10 cents per kilowatt hour and you use 26 3/10 kilowatt hours. So that's basically asking us how much money it's going to cost, because look at what happens here. This kilowatt hour cancels out this kilowatt hour. This one's in the numerator, this one's in the denominator. They have to be one above in the numerators and one below in the denominator in order to cancel out. They don't cancel out if they're just side by side, then they actually end up being squared, right? Just like if you're multiplying length times width and you've got two of the same units, you end up squaring them, right? Well, we're not doing that here. We're canceling out these units. So that's all I can cancel there. So I see the label already. I can clearly see that the label is going to be cents. So let me write that, cents. And then I also see something like super easy. 10 times anything just means I move the decimal to the right. And I also see that I only have to move it one place. Boom, move this decimal to the right, it becomes 263 cents. And what does that equal? Also, if you want to, we're used to writing it like this, $2.63 is what 263 cents is. So this would be the most ideal version of what we use in America. This is obviously correct too, but you want to get a better answer than that. I suppose it'd be $2.63. All right, let's look at letter D here. If you have 160 kilometers per 2 hours and you go for 10 hours, how far are we going to go? Well, and why did I say how far are we going to go? Because I see that hours cancels hours, and all I'm left with is a distance measurement. So in that case, my label is going to be kilometers, or km. So because it's kilometers, I'm now going to look at some other things. Are these other numbers compatible? Can I do some things with them like this? I could do a couple things actually. I could take 160 divided by 2, I know what that is. Or I could take 10 divided by 2, I also know what that is. Which one would you do? Well, for me personally, I don't want to take 160 times 5 because I know what that's a little more challenging. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to change this to 1, and I'm going to change this to 80. Why did I do that? Because I see that 80 is easier to multiply by 10 than 160 is. If I did it this way, it'd be 160 times 5. And I'd have to actually work out the math. I wouldn't be able to use mental math. I could, but I might more than likely be wrong. So I just want to use something I know. Look at how easy this is. 80 times 10. So now I just have the 8 with 2 zeros. So it's 800 kilometers. That's how far you go if you go 160 kilometers for every 2 hours and you drive for 10 hours, you've driven 800 kilometers in distance. Okay, let's look at letter E here. Multiply 18 teachers by 29 students per teacher. Well, what does this mean? It means this. Just do it. 18 teachers. So I'm going to write that. 18 teachers. And it says by, so that means multiplied by 29 students. So I got to write that word out. And then what's this per mean? Well, that's the key to unlocking this. If you know what per means in math, it means divided by, and then teacher. That's the last word. So I just wrote it out. 18 teachers by 29 students per teacher. So look what happens here. If I make this a ratio format, this ends up being canceling out. Let me just use a different color here. So this teacher cancels out this teachers. They're the same unit basically. And because of that, now I'm all that's left is students. So I have to take that 18 times 29 to find out what that's going to be in the final answer here. So let me just do that real quick up here. So I have 29 times 18. That'd be 72. This would be 16 plus 7 would be 23. This would be 9. This would be 2. And I add those together, I end up with 2. It'd be 12, and it'd be 5. So it'd be 522 students. Okay, and I'm just going to label it right here. 522 students. That would be the answer for this. If you have 18 teachers and 29 students per teacher, that means there are going to be 522 students in that school. All right, let's look at letter F here. Multiply 2 3/10 meters by 100 centimeters per meter. So all I need to do, let me just write this down. I'm going to write it down over here. So if you have 2 3/10 meters, and I need to multiply that by, it says 100 centimeters per meter. Okay. Well, and then don't forget to put this as a ratio value. And now I can cancel out this m and this m. See, that one's in the numerator, this one's in the denominator. So I'm done. That cancels out. I know what my label is going to be on this one. My label is going to be centimeters. I don't even need to look back at the question or what kind of problem they're asking me to do here. I just see that there's no more meters left, and all I've got left is the centimeters. So that's going to be my final label. And then I just need to multiply it by 100. Again, this one is like super easy. You don't need to actually do anything more than mental math here. Remember, multiplying by 100 means you move the decimal as many places as there are zeros. So here's what I need to write. I need to put the 2 and the 3, and I'm going to move the decimal from the position in between the 2 and the 3 2 places to the right because there's 2 zeros in it. So that makes 230 centimeters. And that'd be the answer for letter F. All right, let's do the last one here before your quiz. This one says, solve this problem by multiplying two ratios. What are ratios again? Well, it's like fractions. So you just need to keep in mind that you're setting it up like a fraction. So how far will the train travel in 6 hours? So let's write that, 6 hours at 45 miles per hour. So in this case, I have to multiply. The word at is similar to the multiplication, and this remains per. So I've got 45 miles per hour. And then to make this a ratio, I just put it over 1. 6 hours divided by 1 is the same as 6 hours. There's my equation. So how far will the train travel in 6 hours at 45 miles per hour? Now I just need to cancel this out and cancel this out because these are the same units. And all I'm left with in this case is miles. So that means I'm on the right track because it's the question itself. If you look back at here, it says how far will the train travel? So we're looking for miles in this one, and it's got 6 times 45 divided by 1. All I need to do is 45 times 6 then. So 45 times 6 is the same as 30. And then I carry that, there'd be 24 plus 3 would be 27. So I should end up with 270 miles is how far that train will travel in 6 hours at 45 miles every hour. If it's going 45 miles per hour, that's how fast it's going in an hour. 45 miles in 1 hour, and you go 6 hours, it's like taking, that 45 plus 45 plus 45 plus 45 plus 45 plus 45. If you wanted to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want to add those up, you can do it that way, but that's the tedious way. Or you could just do this, 45 times 6, which is essentially what the equation was, 6 hours at 45 miles per hour. Okay? All right, if you guys are finished with the Ed puzzle, now you can go ahead and do your Go Formative quiz. Remember, each one of these problems right now, as we've got it set up, is worth 5 points. So that's 5 points. This is 5 points. This is 5 points, 5 points, and 5 points. So be very careful. Review the things that we just covered if you need to. This might be a good slide to look at. If you don't know what's going on, watch the video again before you take the quiz. Okay, before you take the quiz, this is worth 25 points. That's your daily assignment. Okay, good luck, guys. Have fun. We'll see you guys next time for Saxon Math.